There we went. Hey everybody, we are here. You miss people get around, at least the 4 or 5 who typically show up, and then I'll probably leave those lights on for now because I do want to show some babies. That's where the babies are located. To go in there to get them. Um, and then there's a few things I want to talk about today as people get on here. Can I like it myself? No. It's what we've been reduced to. Liking your own videos to help boost them up. Sad, I know. All right, well, I show one like and nobody here, so I'm not really sure. Shit, just dropped my scissors. Not really sure what's going on. Hopefully, there's one person. Yay, I'm not alone. 2. Good, I started to think I was completely forgotten about in the world. Not that it's a big deal. I mean, I guess it would be kind of a big deal because it would hurt my business, which we're going to discuss today. Is our ball pythons really a business? I guess I am forgotten about the one. So, so I want to get some people on here. If we give it a second, hopefully some show up. And if you're having some problems, I haven't seen the comment. Let me know when you get in. Check in, say hi, make sure that like button, etc., etc., etc. Go check out our Patreon, etc., etc., etc. And I promise to get away from as many lives and back to some normal video content here very soon. Kurt's coming out of his quarantine today, meaning we can get back to business as usual tomorrow. So that's really exciting for me because these take a lot more time, in all honesty. But I do enjoy them. If I had more time, I would probably do a lot of this. I'd probably try to layer in at least one of these a week if I had the time to do it. I just don't, unfortunately. However, that is going to be a self-solving problem here very soon. What's going on, David W? I'm glad my comments are working. I was getting nervous there. 2 minutes, and you're the first person to say hi. I was kind of scared. All right. We got 10 people on here. Good morning, Lindsay. Good to see you. And I know it's morning. I don't usually do it, but don't worry, y'all. I've already had my whiskey, so we are going to be okay this morning. So let me ask you guys this. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's layer it in. What I'm going to do for those of you who are here very early, I'm going to show you the 2 holdbacks I've selected so far this year. Now, let me be clear. You've seen a lot of clutches. Morning. Hello. I can read the translation. Thank you. You've seen a lot of clutches from us this year. And so you're thinking probably only 2 holdbacks. I don't pick my holdbacks until after at least the first shed, and then only if I know what I want for sure. Sometimes I wait a little longer. What's going on, Luke? So I say I only got 2 holdbacks so far. That is not indicative of the 8 clutches we've had. There will be more. I promise. There's one I could already call a holdback. I don't set them up till post shed in their own tubs. That's when they get picked. So let me show you early birds, the holdbacks. Then we'll discuss our topic. And after that, I'm going to show you the babies. So the first one I want to show you, where did you go? Is this one. Now, this is a snake that I chose this year, just basically because of look. We've only got the one. Let me show you the snake first, then I'll kind of tell you about it. So, right there is the snake itself. Now, what you got going on in here, I guess I should move it that way, is what we're really looking at is a pastel leopard spot nose. And that's what we believe we're seeing here. This is a little female. I actually got 2 of these. This one was the one I decided to keep just based on, well, some pattern aberrations I liked. Really, they're both pretty equal. So it kind of just came down to some personal flavor. I also like the head on this one just slightly better. So it became my holdback. But pastel leopard spot nose. So why this? I feel there's a lot that can be done with spot nose, and I haven't explored it too much. But I'm getting more and more into it the more I play with it and the more I mix it. It does have some problems. I mean, if you're not familiar with spot nose, it's part of that wobble gene complex, I like to say, so you don't want to mix with spider. I like to stay away from champagne. I'm personally not a big fan of the Powerball. And if I'm missing saying good morning to you, it's because I can't see the comments just looking down. The super spot nose tend to have a little more wobble issues as well. But spot nose by itself, similar to like spider, probably less apparent than spider, you're going to be good to go. But you do want to be careful what you breed this to. I know I learned more about it when we made our initial pairing with it. We ended up putting it to spider. It was one of the times I guess I didn't do enough research and didn't realize that there were some extra consequences to that. Not necessarily lethal, but you are potentially making the wobble worse. So you're taking a problem that's very, I won't say uncommon because wobble's always there, but not very common to be severe or bad or debilitating or anything at all, and you're increasing that chance to where it now can be a lot easier. And that's where I start having a little bit of dilemma. So I personally choose to be very careful when I put my spot nose too. However, I do think it's a pretty cool morph, pretty cool gene. I like what I did with the leopard. That pattern all linked together, ran together through like here, through back here. Really cool animal. So this is one of the holdbacks we chose. This is the most recent one I chose. This snake has never had a meal yet. It is fresh shed, so it's meal free. Is my scale over here? I actually put my scale where I'm supposed to. Guys, I never put crap up. So let me get a weight on this one. I have not done that yet. Oh boy. I don't know if you all will be able to see that weight. You will if I tilt that just like that. Hey, come on. And then we'll see what this thing weighs. I'm going to say we're probably in the 60-gram mark. 65, so that's pretty close. So that's a good size baby. It's right about what we look for. I'll definitely take 65-gram babies all day long, especially post first shed after egg absorption. Let me put this guy back and show you the other one I've selected so far this year. Now this one's probably going to surprise a lot of people as I'm picking it for a holdback. It's not a crazy morph or anything like that. They've been out for a long, long time. So, but if you look close, you'll see kind of why. So this one has had a few meals. It's at 87 grams. So it is doing good. What this is, what you're looking at, is a killer spinner. So super pastel, right? Spider, pin. So they've been out for quite a while, and I didn't have any spinners. This is actually the only spinner I own now. I mean, I've got others I'm going to part with, but this was my first year ever producing something as simple as spinner. As crazy as that sounds, just never had done it. But this one also happens to be, a scaleless head. If you look nice and close, of course, now you're going to try to hide that beautiful scaleless head. Let me try to show you that. So you can see, very good example of scaleless head. So it's doing good. And the one thing I haven't checked, I want to look because it was kind of a rumor going around there for a while. I subscribed to it to myself. This one does have a split anal vent scale. I have heard all scaleless head have a split vent scale. And I think that very well could be true. And I've heard that people will then say, well, if it has a split vent scale, it's scaleless head. No, it's not. I have had snakes with a split vent that are not scaleless head, that there's no scaleless head in the combo whatsoever. Let me put this guy back. I'll answer a few questions. Then we're going to go on to today's topic, which I think will raise a lot of questions. I say guy. These are both females. And the reason they're both females is I'm a big believer in the fact that you hold your females, you buy your males most often. There are always exceptions. I did keep a male last year. It was on my scaleless heads. And I'll keep a male this year, I think, because, some things are just too big of a deal to let go, right? So yeah, that's a fact. Some of the things are just too big of a deal for me. It's too much of a first time to let go. I end up pocketing them whether I should or shouldn't. So, and you're going to do the same. So let's get on. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. We got a good number of people. Is it normal for an egg to turn brown and shrivel and harden? I haven't seen that egg, so I don't want to say beyond a doubt what it is. And that question too, so he knows I'm talking, is Reptihaven morphs. Usually, right? Usually when your egg is, as you described, it's a dead egg. The getting hard. Now, if you're really close to hatching or you're not positive it's dead, when in doubt, incubate it out, okay? When in doubt, incubate it out. But I've had some really close, they'll start to kind of yellow a little bit because the egg's dying, but the baby's alive and needs to come out. So if you're like a day 50-something, maybe it's time to cut those. If you're at like day 25 or 30 and that egg's shriveling, getting hard, and turning yellow, your egg is likely dead. Now, if you're not 100% sure, just leave it in the cooker and it'll start to probably mold and you'll know and you can kick it free. But if you're not positive, the last thing you want to do is throw out a viable baby. But I'll be honest, that egg does not sound good based on the description you're giving. But without a visual, it's really hard for me to say, yep, dead. I don't want to say that without being 100% correct. And then Kristen says, Kristen's here from South Africa. Thank you so much. I absolutely love your videos. I got to tell you a story, Kristen. She's from South Africa. I think you'll get a kick out of this. So one time, I was talking on a live, I think it was, or something, or maybe it was just a video, and I made a comment about, when it comes to breeding ball pythons, we look for weight, but a certain age too, and maturity makes a difference. And I've bred smaller females when they're 4 or 5 years old. They're not at 1,500 grams yet. They have that trouble getting there, but I'll go ahead and pair them at 1,250, 1,300 because of their age. And then I made a comment of, because there's no scales in Africa. And of course, my comment is in reference to, there's not ball pythons going out to breed. And when I'm saying, well, hey girl, man, get on that scale. Let me make sure, like they're not in the wild climbing on scales. And I had somebody come back and they were really offended. And they lived in South Africa. And they were trying to explain to me how developed of a country South Africa is. And I'm like, yeah, I know. South Africa is a fully developed nation. Like, it's got everything we've got and probably more shit than we have in some places. Like, it's, South, it's not third world or anything, but they were pissed because they thought I was making a reference that there are no literal scales in Africa. Like, the entire continent is not in possession of a scale, and thought I was a moron. And I was just like, oh man. Sometimes when you say things, it gets taken too literal. So anyway, that's my funny story about South Africa. I love you guys down there. I know it's a fully developed country and an awesome place, but it's actually on my bucket list to go around that coast. Would be really cool. But I did. I got my ass completely chewed, like 3 paragraphs of how developed Africa is, and how then it went into America sucking and all kinds of stuff, and how we're so terrible because we think we're. And I'm like, dude, I was literally talking about there's no scale setting out in the savannah for ball pythons to crawl on before breeding. Like, it wasn't a knock on a country. If I'm gonna knock a country, oh no, I get it. I think he just was, had a lot of pride in his country, which is cool, man. You do you, dude. But it was just kind of funny that he took that completely the wrong way. We've all done that. But I just thought it was funny that I got my ass chewed over that comment. That there's no scales in Africa. But anyway, but welcome. I love having people from not just South Africa. I think it's really cool when I get people from other countries. And it just amazes me that somebody outside of these borders would be willing to watch me. I think that's really great, really neat, and it shows the power of the internet and how small the world can really be. Woohoo! Glad you got your ass hit home. Don't watch and drive. Make Kevin drive. So anyway, I want to talk about today's topic, and this came from a live I did a while back, and we kind of got off kilter with it a little bit, and so I wanted to come back to it, and I wanted to speak on it after thinking about it a little bit. And that is, are ball pythons really a business? Is this really a viable business? Yeah, and I mean, let's start from that question, and then let's get into what that business really looks like, and what it looks like for me and other people are going to be 2 different things, man. Everybody's story is the same, and you're going to write your own book. You're going to write your own book in this with your own ending, good or bad, right? Thank you, and I am located in the great state of Kansas, Ray. So with that, first of all, let me say I do think thank you, Dennis. I agree. Let's get this up to 100. And hey, too, we got 15 likes, man. If y'all could click that like button and subscribe if you haven't, it really does help us out a ton. I hate that I have to mention it, but I do, because we're trying to get YouTube to completely not hate us and actually put our videos out there again, because we have been blackballed to the point that people are like, hey, I haven't seen you put a video up in 2 years. I'm like, dude, 2 a week, man. 2 a week. But so thank you. I see those rolling in now. I appreciate it. Just keep clicking on it. Get on your ghost accounts, click on it. Make your friends click on it. I don't know, whatever you need to do. Well, and I can't say your name because the name doesn't translate. It says I can't speak English, but I always watch it. Thank you for today. I appreciate that. And it's translating pretty decent, I hope. So again, thank you for watching from other places. It's awesome. And watching Dingo in his patch from South Africa is awesome. Yes, thank you, Mike. So anyway, now see, then that one didn't translate. Like they're all translating, and the one missed it. But I'm going to assume it's positive. So thank you again. So are ball pythons a viable business? Yes, they are. Reptiles are a business. You can run them as a business. You can make a living at them. You can do whatever you want with them. But let's talk about what that business model truly looks like. And because I think there has always been, since I got into this hobby, and it always will be, and I don't think it's unique to reptiles. I think it's across the board in almost any industry or business you're in, there has been some ideas of what people think it is or what they can do with it, and then there's some realities. And then there's also some realities that we all hold as these truths that some of these people over here are going to challenge one day and change. That's going to happen too, and that's good. That's how we move forward. We will never move forward with everybody doing the exact same thing. I mean, unless you're an army or merchant, then you move forward doing the same thing. Otherwise, it takes a little bit of some different strokes for some different folks. I can give you prime examples of that. But as we sit here and we talk about what a ball python business really looks like, and this came from somebody, and I don't remember the name, and they're not, I'm not trying to rip on them. So if this sounds like I'm being anti against anybody or any other breeder or any person, I'm really not. I'm trying to put the world out there as I see it. It may be different for some of them. And feel free to chime in, guys, if you want. Like, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on some of this. It came from a comment that, I want to get into ball pythons. I'm going to breed a handful of high-end morphs and make easy money. Easy money. And that, for me, is this big red flag. So I'm like, dude, I want to grab that person and pull them aside and say, hey, look, man, I like what you're thinking, but it ain't going to work that way, bro. Like, you've got to, like, really see what it is. And if you want to do it, be willing to do it. And that's okay. But that business model is probably not viable for most. I've also heard people say, you have to invest an assload of money into it to get into it. And I don't think you do. Now, will that jumpstart it? Yeah. If you come in and you got 50 grand to invest in your ball python business, or 100 grand or 150 grand, or whatever you got, and you invest it in, that's going to jumpstart your business. Okay. Now, it's going to do one of two things. One, if you've got that money sitting there and that's a risk you choose to take with your own money, then, all right, dude, go for it. Like, if you want to do it, do it. Like, there's not anything wrong with that. I will tell you, never invest money in a business of any kind that you're willing to lose. Because business is a gamble. It may be a good one, right? But it's a gamble. It's a gamble. And you put that money in there and you're hoping it's going to grow and you're going to do this. But if you're putting that money in there, and you can't eat if you lose it, man, you better be damn sure. And some people have done that because they've had no choice and it's worked out. Others have done something like that on all kinds of businesses and it didn't work out. And there's a lot more in the latter category than the former category, right? It's a gamble. It's a risk. Understand that. So I would always say invest what you are willing to lose. That's key. Invest the money you are willing to lose. And that may be a couple grand. That may be $4,000. That may be 10 grand over a span of time, which is probably kind of what my story is, if I'm being honest. I probably put in, I don't know, I probably put $10,000-$15,000 of my own money in this over the span of 8 years. Now I've made more than that. So for me, it's been successful. I made significantly more than that. Now, it doesn't mean it's cash in my pocket. Okay. I mean, you've got to understand that too. Making money isn't always making money in your hand. And that's, people go, what the hell are you talking about? I'll explain in a minute. So, but if you borrow that money, if you go to a bank or you go to somewhere and you borrow, family bank, whatever, this money, and you say you're going to borrow $50,000 to jumpstart your ball python business, right? Well, now, man, you've got bills to pay, right? And I'm in that boat right now, y'all. I can tell you, like that adds a layer. I didn't get into that boat where I had a bill to pay until down the road when I knew I was stable, partly because of social media too. So my business is twofold on that. And that is where I'm sitting right now. I mean, I didn't pay cash for this house, right? Would have been pretty badass if I did, but I didn't. So there is a note on this that I pay every month, and I've probably got, I have to look in about 5 more years of doing so, and then it's paid off and the profit's pure on that. So there's a gamble there. What if my business folds? What if this happens? You know, how am I going to pay that bill? Well, own property, whole different thing. But there is no such, well, win the lottery. And Luke, I get you. And that was my hope. My hope was to really, and that's the other thing too, know what you want. You have to go into any business, I think, with your eyes open as to what you want out of it. And set your goals to meet the expectations that you have for what you want. Me, I wanted a job that could replace my income or supplement my retirement. If I got there early, awesome. If the supplement my retirement time came, cool, it's up cupcake. Um, and so that was what I was after. That's what I'm trying to do here. I think I'm there. You know, I didn't want a business like Brian Barczyk. I don't want that. That's not what I want. That's not for me. I don't want 10 or 15 employees have to bust my ass, 100 plus hours a week and all of these things to get that to that point. I don't want that. I can't. I got other jobs, and I'm not willing to take that risk at the moment of leaving my other income sources and putting all my chips in the middle of the table. Now that guy did, if you know his story, and he was living at home, and I mean, it's what he wanted to do. He started it very early, and you're seeing the results of that 35 years down the road, right? You got other people look at and they go, damn, this is an easy business. I always want to point to Miguel, and again, I like Miguel. It's not Miguel. Nobody should take it that way. Miguel had a business since other places, had money he made other places, and then transferred it to here. So was able to jumpstart that. With a big personal investment. Again, money he was willing to lose if it went south, and he's able to do that. So but not everybody's going to be in that situation. I myself wasn't. I was, when I first got into this, I was coming off of a divorce, so bills were a lot tighter than they had been. I didn't have a lot of money I was willing to lose, so I invested mine over time. So it is a viable business. But I want you to think about all the people that you know, and I'm going to name some off the top of my head that you look at, whether it's on channels, and congratulations on first clutch. That's awesome. Whether it's big channels that you see or big breeders that you know, or any breeder that you know who's making what one would typically consider a successful career at this, right? Making a ton of money at this. And by a ton of money, I mean they're doing well with ball pythons. Not, I'm not going to throw numbers out there because well is different for everybody. But let's look at some of those names that we know. Okay, Mike Wilbanks comes to mind. Mike Wilbanks has done very well. Brian Barczyk, who we already mentioned, comes to mind, has done very, very well. Kevin, over there at Nerd, man, they've done really well. I always say that guy literally wrote the book because he did. He wrote a ball python morph guide. They've done very well. There's a JKR. I mean, I'm sure we can think of some more if we want, right? And Miguel, yes, and he invested a lot of that money in networking. There's a lot of shit that dude did that most people, unless they come from that background, probably aren't going to have the knowledge to do right away. So I'll point that out. So, I mean, good, and that's good on him. And we throw him in that category. He's doing very, very well at what he's doing, I think. And then, too, I'm going to throw a name, Daniel Alice, although there was a few years ago, man, that dude was about to dip the hell out, and they stayed with it. And I watched a podcast on his recently where he was talking about size. So those are some names, Garrick DeMeyer, man, I forgot Garrick. That guy's doing very well. Shit, I watched an old video of Garrick's the other day, and he was like, talking about the season fluctuating. And he said that, we're 87 clutches behind where we were last year, but then this month we caught up. 87 clutches behind? How many fucking clutches do you do, man? That's the thing. So my point I want to make is when you start thinking about these people, the vast majority of them have one thing in common. It's a very large operation, right? I don't know how big JKR is, but it's not small. I don't think it's Kevin's size or Barczyk's size. He say he's the largest small breeder, but it's not a small operation. I guarantee you, they're not doing 30 clutches a year or 40 clutches a year. It's not. I think he's doing many more than that. We can talk about Barczyk, we can talk about Kevin. We know those are big. I just mentioned Garrick DeMeyer being 80-some behind and catching up in 1 month. All those guys are large. The one exception could possibly be Miguel. I don't think he's doing that many. But if you look at his operation, how it's expanded, it's grown. It is a large operation. It is not small. He's not doing 5 clutches a year. So in order to be truly successful at it, and truly make a living at it, you have to have some economy of scale. You're going to have size. You know what I mean? Thank you, Dennis. If you're wanting to sit there and make good money, you're going to have good size. This, what you see in here, probably ain't going to cut it for that, because you got to remember my rack actually doesn't go much farther than what you see. Well, I mean, we're going to add to this, and we'll be able to do what we want to do here, but it ain't going to make a shit ton of money, right? Oh, well, there you go. JKR does more than ball. Yeah, but Brian, I mean, we're talking about just reptiles in general. Brian does a little bit of everything. And at one point in time, I know Brian has shrunk his breeding sizes down, last I knew, on purpose. He was doing more than anybody in the world, I think. You know, but then he wanted to do more social media, and so it kind of transferred there, right? So what I want to know, and what I want to hear from you guys, is how do you guys see the business playing out? What do you guys want to? Because you know, some people just want to. One person posted earlier, "Hey, I just hatched my first set of eggs. You know, they're really exciting, but they just want to do it as a hobby, and that's cool. And if you just want to do it as a hobby, there's no reason to go past that. If you want to change that one day, you can. You can always change where your goals lie. You can. It's awesome, right? You may get into this and say, I want to grow a business where I'm doing 300 or 400 clutches a year. I have a couple employees working full time for me, and bam, 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 right? And then you may go, holy shit, I don't want to do that. I don't want to manage people. For me, I don't want to manage people, you know? So like, then you can fold it back in a little bit and reset your goals. You know, I may say one day, I said when I first bought this house, man, I don't ever see myself outgrowing this as a facility. It's just not what I want to do. Maybe that changes. Maybe I'm building a warehouse one day. I doubt it. But maybe, you know, you never know. You got to be a little bit flexible. And Lindsay says, you know, she just wants her snakes to cover their food bedding plus an emergency fund. And that's a great goal, and that's an easily achievable goal after a while, I think, to do that. You know, and that's the other thing, too. I think people don't realize when they first get into it how much overhead it really is, or on the flip side, how much work it is. It's one of the two. There's no way around it. Man, you know, $10,000 to invest in a ball python business does not go as far as one thinks it does. Okay? It really doesn't, because you're going to have to buy food. You're going to have to buy animals. You're going to have to buy caging. You're going to have to pay the electric bill and space and all these things that you've got to do. Yes, you can lower cost. You can breed your own rats. You can do X, Y, Z. But then guess what you got to do? Buy or build rat racks. Work more. Buy rat food, because unless you're going to feed them the shitty dog food, please don't feed them the shitty dog food. I mean, get some good food for them. You know, all of these things you got to do. Then you got like David. You know, David here says he just wants a couple of pets. He doesn't really want to get into breeding at this point. And I know what kind of pets David likes. He likes some of the ones that I like that can, well, make you bleed from your eyeballs. And that's cool too. Like the hobby, I think that's one of the things we got mixed. So I'm glad that Lindsay, Dave, I'm glad you guys commented. We get mixed up in the hobby that everybody wants to breed a business, right? Everybody wants to breed for business. I'm guilty of that too, because that's what I'm doing. So therefore, I think the whole world must want to do it. It's involved in reptiles. It's not the case. Some people just want to have pets. Some people want to breed maybe 4 or 5 clutches a year at most, you know. But I think, well, those are viable things to do. If you're going to have pets, you know you're going to have a pet bill. It's no different than having a dog. My dog doesn't make me any money. I have to buy him food, pay his vet bills, all that kind of shit, right? He cost me money. It is what it is. And then, you know, I'll get to Anna's in a second. And then like with, you know, Lindsay, hey, I want to make just enough to cover their costs. I want a break-even point. So then you have a little bit of economy of scale, but you don't have to do this, and it becomes manageable. You know, you can get there, you can have fun doing it, you can do all these things, and it's going to be a good time. But yeah, so I want to get to SPRs, but I want to get to Anna's first SPR, because you bring a UK thing, and I want to see what it says. And Anna said we are building our breeding business to be our retirement business, small enough to still feel retired, but still make a little to bring in a little extra above. And see, now that I think is a valuable goal. And I've watched Anna. Now, you guys probably know already. I know Anna on a personal level. They don't live that far away. You know, they're on their Patreon. So you all should be on their Patreon. We become friends, things like that. So they're here fairly often. And so I've watched them grow as breeders, and I know where they're heading and what their goals are. And that goal is a very achievable goal. And they've set themselves up with that goal in mind to get where they want to go, which is how I think people should be doing it. SPR says, to be honest, Matt, to throw a UK's perspective into this, you might be surprised to know it is almost frowned upon in the UK to discuss money within the hobby. It is in the US too, to an extent, so I'm not surprised by that. But here's the kicker. It's frowned on, you know, and I should have thrown Mutation Creation and Billy in there up in Canada too, how he's doing. I mean, that guy's growing really big. But I think it needs to be discussed. Here's why. Again, I'm all about being fairly transparent and fairly open and trying to be truthful for people coming in. If you don't have these conversations and you don't talk about this openly, then people come in with this pie in the sky expectation that may not be legit. And if we aren't open, we let that belief stay there, and we're setting somebody up for failure. At the end of the day, I don't want to set people up for failure. I want to set them up for success. I want anybody who comes in here, and I know it's not going to be 100%, but I want them to be successful. I want them to feel like they achieve what they want. I want them to get joy out of the hobby, and I want them to be successful no matter what level they want to be in it at. And with that, the money discussion, I think, is important. And I get it may not always be the most couth thing to discuss, and I'm not going to dive into anybody's personal finances, nor am I going to open up my accounting books for everybody. But I do think it is a conversation worth having, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. And our English brothers, I know, maybe a little bit more conservative than we are in that kind of stuff. But, here I'm going to try to have it so people know what to expect. But it's pretty interesting. Enjoy the hobby, see myself being in my collection, enjoy it. Right? And aside business retirement, and that's what a lot of people want, is that aside the same thing I wanted to do. Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? And then Luke says, awesome thing is you could pretty much do whatever. Brian Barczyk, mostly a zoo, Channels Wildlife, pretty much just YouTube. Royal Constrictor Science basically just breeds balls. They're all doing good. They are, and I agree with you, Luke, 100%. Those are all people that are doing good. But the kicker is, too, for every one person who said, I'm going to make a living on YouTube and does it, there's about 5,000 who failed. I mean, that's just the reality of it. YouTube is not an easy way to make a living. It's a lot of luck of the draw. It's a lot of getting something in front of the right people. It's a lot of not having the right animal people or whatever group who's woke about some stupid shit, angry at you. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. So going in and saying, I'm going to make a living on YouTube, that's like saying I'm going to go be a professional athlete, right? I love to play basketball. I'd love to, when I was a kid, been an NBA basketball player. That shit wasn't going to happen. I'm 6'2", and, I don't have a great vertical. So, and 6'2" in a small town, I was playing post. 6'2" in the NBA, no. So, you get where I'm going. It's doable. Yes, you could try to go all those routes, but it's very hard to make a living at doing, I would say, YouTube or doing small number of clutches and ball pythons. Those two things, you have to do a decent number to make a living at it. And YouTube, you just got to be a little bit lucky, or you got to be really hot. And, I'll be honest, I do think, like, there are people who have been successful because they put on pretty makeup and they just, you know what I mean? But they have to build good content too. That's the old way of doing it. I don't think that works as well as it used to, but it used to be kind of a thing on YouTube, and I think YouTube's kind of corrected that. So, Shane stopped mid-sentence. And James says, hey, did not give you a hard time. We're working on Kryptons. And somebody said, side note, I know tall grass reptiles is no longer. Where can I get the racks you have? Anyone can answer. Mosey, I want to correct one thing in there. So tall grass rack systems is no longer. Tall grass reptiles, which is a separate thing. I mean, they were kind of related, but not connected. Like, yeah, they're still in function out of Kansas City, but they don't make racks. So for racks, you're right, they're gone. But I want to be clear, tall grass reptiles, you're going to see them on Morse Market, you're going to see them at shows. They're still functioning. They're still good. I wouldn't hesitate to purchase from them. I don't know anybody that makes a style of rack right now. That's the bummer part of it. I wish it did. We're probably going to have to go metal ourselves unless somebody steps in the market and fills this. So, and I agree, color to cold bloods, it is. Now I got to get caught up. Here's my royalties pretty quick. There you go. You can try to do whatever you like, but sometimes it's going to be, hard, right? Lindsay, you might be right on that. I'm not going to read that comment. YouTube will ban me. But I do agree with you. So, anywho, that's kind of my thought process. I want to be clear. I think it is a viable business. But do you know of anybody who's making big money, where they're able to fund the lifestyle they want, not work, have no other income, right? No other side gig, no retirement, no disability, no nothing, and is doing under 25 clutches a year because the thought of I'm just only going to do the high end stuff and that'll make it. I don't know, man. I've never seen anybody do that, and I think it's too hard to break in that way, right? On rare plants, reptiles, mainly ball pythons for. You know what, James? That's exactly why we started YouTube. We started YouTube twofold. One, we kind of thought that, and this is a perfect example of plans change, right? As things change. If we could start YouTube and generate any traction whatsoever, that plus it was a competition with a buddy of mine. We were screwing with him. That maybe then if we go to a show and we're selling snakes, and I got this over here, and the guy beside me has the same thing, and a dude's trying to pick who to buy from, we might look familiar to him. Not that he would recognize, but oh fuck, man, that's Matt from Olympus. I never thought that would happen in my life. I'll be honest that I never thought that would happen ever, and it does, which is really kind of interesting and strange. But it does, So we thought maybe they'd be like, man, that guy looks familiar from some reason. Like maybe I've heard or something. Oh, excuse me, Coke's doing it, and that would push them to buy from us instead of the competition. That was it. That was one big motivator. The other motivator was I wanted to share my story because I honestly felt when my first clutch, and I know I've told the story, so I won't go fully deep into it unless somebody really wants me to. When my first clutch died, I killed the whole thing. It was operator error on my end. I had all the knowledge, lack of experience, right? Knowledge is good, experience is good. It takes both. I only had the one. And I murdered that thing. And I felt like such a piece of shit and like such a failure. And like, I wanted to quit. I wanted to not be in it. I wanted to be done. I wanted to just to sell what I had and just stop. I think there's a lot of people that have that happen or something similar. And, when you'd go on YouTube at the time, it was all unicorn shit and ice cream cones. I mean, nobody was showing anything bad happening. Nobody was being open about a failure, right? Nobody was doing that. Carpets from Africa, my first YouTube video on carpets. I corrected it, though. And I went in and said, once I decided to pick myself up with my bootstraps, a little good swift kick in the ass for my now wife, and do this thing and not give up and not quit and not just bitch out, to keep with it. One thing that I realized was there wasn't really anybody on YouTube who was coming from this grassroots, just starting out. Here's my story. Follow me along from the very beginning when I have, just an inkling of what I want to be and what I want to do, and watch me grow, watch me do well, watch me fail, and come with me for the whole path, right? And I decided to do that. My first videos were rough. They were very like Bill Nye the Science Guy, or not Bill Nye, sorry. I already got in trouble for making fun of him once already. It was very that dude from the Wonder Years, that science teacher, and it wasn't very there was good information in them, but they weren't very entertaining. I decided to be myself, and now what you see is kind of what you get, right? And with that, we wanted to share that from the beginning. I think we've actually lost some of that contact with people, and I think that's because now when you look behind me and there's racks on a wall, there's racks behind me, we're growing exponentially. Right now we're have a potential about 30 this year at most, with next year being probably closer to 40, hopefully, and the year after that. There's this plan where we'll be doing 70, 80 clutches a year. We're no longer this small breeder just starting out of a house. Our animals have their own house, and now it starts to look like this unachievable thing and not this guy just starting out. And if you go back It is very achievable because I did it. So if I did it, then trust me, you can. And you follow from the beginning. All that's there. You know, the good, the bad, the successes, the failures. Even since I moved here, you know, when my killer zebra bee died, I went live and shared that, or I filmed it and shared. I think I filmed it and shared it. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to open myself up to people like some people enjoyed that. Like, oh, ha ha ha, you know. I didn't have to open myself up to that. But I want the hobby to be more open. Same with the money discussions. I want it to be more open. Um, and so we found that niche. And that's what we came in for were those two things. And it took off and it's helped fund everything we do now. And then the Patreon thing came in, and that's been a huge thing for me. I wouldn't have this house without Patreon. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without Patreon. We wouldn't be expanding without Patreon, because most people who I think are trying to do this level I am are not working a full-time job, or if they do, they have employees helping. We don't, man. It's two of us. Excuse me. One does all the snake work. One does all the rat work, or half the rat work. That's at our shop, and we have an employee that does help with that. And then we come together on feed day. Like that's, you know, that's how it works here. So yes, let me get a couple few of the comments because I'm kind of off track. And also, it helps you so much that a person that people like, well, thank you. Regardless of what content you put out, people will watch you. Well, we might test that theory one of these days, I promise, because we might do some other content things other than reptiles on a separate channel. So see if you can find it. My wife wanted to start something. She's got to get in there and edit it. And I'm still waiting on Kurt to make some Bigfoot videos. It'll make sense one day. Someone says, not so much to say rotten Ronnie says, having a baby ball python, baby ball that is 5 months old, refused to eat normal. That says he's healthy, but have to force feed every feeding. Do they grow out of this eventually? Well, if you're force feeding every feeding and he's never really skipped, I mean, give him a break because you're probably stressing him, right? If he's 5 months old, he's healthy, his body condition is good. Him missing a few meals is not the end of the world. It's pretty common. They do that. You know, it may be time for a full cleaning. It may be time just to check your heat and humidity. It may be time to mix things up. Maybe try changing food items. But I don't usually recommend force feeding those animals. I mean, that's a last resort. Them skipping a few meals, even 6 or 8, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. As long as it's not an underlying cause, you know, that's causing you an issue. So check on that. I think they do, but when feeding a snake, you have to have them see the rat and also be dead rat. It was warmed up. The cupcake, I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you're talking about Europe, then yes, here we feed live. So that's how I do it. And there's a couple reasons. I get a lot of shit for feeding live. One, I've never had scarring. I've never had a snake get chewed up. That's just not a thing. Okay, it doesn't happen here. Never had that issue. Number two is with breeding our own rats at a large scale, they're not in the same facility. We'll cart home enough rats to feed every animal. We'll go through, try to feed every animal. Not every animal eats. It's different parts of breeding season, different males not eating, different whatever. Usually the babies eat good. The adults are all over the map. So we're taking a good 30 rats home, 40 rats home. We don't have to waste them or thaw them out. They go right back into the colony, you know, and they get sold to customers or come back here the next feed time. So we have less waste of being live. If you did make beautiful tramps of rare plants, you know, you probably could, James, you know, and I do TikTok. Would rather die than eat frozen thawed. Some of them would. I've got a few snakes that only eat pre-killed. There's 3 of them in my collection right now that will not eat alive. They will not eat a live rat, so I have to fresh kill it and feed it to them, you know, which is what we typically do. Well, thank you, Dennis. I don't plan on changing my personal. I said about, you know, you may change as you go through. You're going to change from what you learn, and your goals in a reptile hobby may change. Like, you know, my goals are not the same as they were one day, or I've realized that the path to my goals that I had wasn't a valid path, and I've had to alter it. That's happened too, you know. So therein lies the truth of the matter. I used to think every female I ever touched, I thought I was like fucking Midas, man. And any female I touched would automatically lay eggs and turn to gold. Well, the bigger your collection gets, you start seeing that's not always going to be the case. You know, you're going to have some that don't go, some that are, yeah. So, and I'm not sure if frozen thaw is that much nicer than mouse. I mean, they died through suffocation when you frozen thaw them. That's how they typically are executed. So I'd rather just stop the heart with the big compression and be done if it goes well. So it just kind of depends, you know. And it's even worse when you throw a frozen mouse or rat out, because it didn't get eaten. You can't really refreeze it more than once. Even once is kind of sketch. So you're tossing it away, and one, there went $3. You just threw down the garbage, and two, that rat died for nothing at that point. It died so I can throw it outside, because it'll still happen here on occasion. It's rare. Snake kills rat, doesn't eat it, and I take it and I toss it out back for carrion, so I can feed some of my local wildlife will come up and eat that, like my foxes. They're not mine, they're nature's foxes. Or I've found them out here getting that kind of stuff, buzzards and whatnot, large birds and some of the raptors. So, I try not to let it go to waste, but I hate that waste. So, but again, it's totally up to you. I don't have anything against frozen thawed, like at all. I just talk about why I choose to do live. People that like to do frozen thawed, man, more power to you. That's the other thing about this damn hobby and the world in general is we've gotten so my team or the other team, that's stupid. Like, we're all in the same boat. We all love reptiles. Why don't we fight to keep our reptiles instead of fighting about whether or not we should have spider or whether or not we should feed live or whether that's a dumb fight. Let's stick together to fight to keep our rights and grow our hobby. So. Yeah, if you do it too quick, I've had that happen. I've had it blow up. My old carpet python, she died of old age and egg binding when she was about 20. She'd blow them up all the time, man, all the time. So speaking of carpets, the carpet babies are doing great. So I promised to show you some babies, and I'm going to. But first, I want to know: do you guys have any thoughts or questions on talking about when it comes to is this a business? Yes, it is a business. Yes, it can be a successful business, but it's not easy money. It's not, I'm going to do 5 clutches a year and make $100,000. It's not those things. That's not what it is. At least not in my experience. It's going to be work. It's going to be everything else. And remember too, the idea of doing just 5 clutches a year. I mean, I don't know. I think what do you guys think the minimum clutch number is to quit your day job and work just this with no other income? That's what I would like to know. Yeah. And that's a good point too, Lindsay. If you're doing live, like I talked about, I like to do live because X, Y, and Z. But if you don't want to be feeding, like rats and taking care of rats and working rats and doing all that, then yeah, frozen's a much better way to go, right? Because that's a lot of work. I mean, it is a lot of work. It saves you a lot of money, but when you look at your hourly rate, you may not be saving so much. So I understand where you're coming from there. This freeway, we'll talk about that really quick, James, actually. So I think the lowest number I've seen is 60 so far. I've seen a lot in that 100 to 150 range. And I can tell you for us, I think our plan was about 120 to 130 females with a hope of about 100 clutches a year, heavy on the recessives, that sort of thing. That's where our hope is, and our hope is between that, right, that number of clutches, and social media, because we get a little bump from that too, right? And this would, of course, be after the facility is fully paid for. Meaning we don't have a rent bill or anything. All we'd have is insurance and taxes, that we can make it. We can make it, especially as a supplement to like retirement. That's where I'm at. And Steve hit the point right there too. Thank you, Steve. And what he said is you can have 1,000 clutches, but you still got to sell them suckers. So salesman skills are an important part of the business. They are. We've talked a lot of times about how to act at a show, and you never see us at shows. Like, what the fuck do you know? But when we used to go to shows, we do really good. We don't have to go to shows anymore, so we don't. I miss them. I like doing them. I enjoyed them. It was one of my favorite things. But, you do. You have to hustle to sell your snakes. And that makes it hard, too, on the high-end stuff if you're only doing a handful of clutches a year and you're just starting and nobody knows who you are. Nobody can... You can't go back on 10 years of experience. Nobody's heard of your business. They know you personally. If you go to a show and you see a sign for JKR, even if Justin, the dude there, you know those animals, right? You see Greg Graziani, you see John Dog and Exantix, you see, Joe Bob, who you've never heard of, and Joe Bob's got a table full of $7,000 animals. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? That's kind of the thing. Like that, and that's just the truth of it. It sucks. It sucks it's that way. But as a customer, how would you feel? Would you go buy from Joe Bob, or would you go buy from John Don or Greg Graziani or JKR, right? You're going to buy from those folks, right? I mean, you are, because, yeah. And see, Reptiles, if you have 100 clutches, 6 eggs, and that's not far from legit right there. But when you take that 120K a year, right? I mean, now it sounds, hell, man, fuck, man, we're cooking, right? 100 clutches a year, 120K a year, hell, we're rolling. But you're not yet, because that's your what's totally coming in. That's assuming everything lives, nothing dies, everything gets sold. I don't think your averages are far off. It's not far off the numbers I actually use. So same wavelength. But again, that's gross, right? You got to take your expenses out of that. You know, and you're like, oh, I ain't that many expenses. Well, if you're breeding your own rat, man, your rat food bill has to come out of that, right? Your electrical bill has to come out of that. Your facility bills have to come out of that. If you use an employee, have to come out of that. If you're going to shows, entrance fees, gas, hotel has to come out of that. All these things have to come out of that. So yeah, you may be doing 120 gross. Well, your time, man, your time is, I don't take that out of it. And the reason I don't take my time out of it, and I mean, that's a good point too, but you know, I can work for me, or I can go work for the man, you know, or I can go work for this other dude over here. So time is, I'm going to have to sell my time anyway. I mean, that's what we all are. We're all time whores. I mean, we're all going to have to sell our time, whether we're selling it to ourselves or selling it to a business. You know, when I sell my time to somebody else's business, they're making money off my damn time. What the hell is that, right? So yeah, you're looking at 30 to 50K. And depending on where you live, 30K, especially if, you know, that may be a little hard to get it done on. It may be, you know, like, now 30K is a supplemental income to like a retirement or to something else. Hey, that's all right now, correct? I mean, it depends on your lifestyle goals you want to achieve. It depends on what bills you have. I mean, you got a mortgage you're paying for? You know, are you used to making 50K and now you're dropping down to 30? Are you used to making 80K and you're dropping down to 50K? Those things play a role in where you're at. So it is just something to think about, right? You got to consider those expenses. And then two, are you doing that yourself? Because, man, 100 clutches a year on your own, breeding all your own rats, feeding all of those things, that is a lot of work. You know, well, welcome from the Philippines. That's awesome. So there's a good chance that you've got somebody helping you, whether it's a business partner or an employee. You know, if it's an employee, you're going to pay them the same no matter what. If it's a partner, they're probably taking half of that too. And so that 50K is now 25K, right? That's just the way it works. So, yeah. This is true. That is true. And so, you know, she kind of hit the nail on the head, and that's something to consider. So let me show you guys some more snakes, I promised, so I will. And I believe somebody mentioned asphalt project, and I wanted to know about that. That would be worthwhile to get into. Well, let's talk about that, shall we? So these are some I've been posting about recently on Patreon, just on like my channel, because, well, I'm really excited about them. So I want to share them with you guys here too. So, cost of buying them is ridiculous. You know, there's ways to offset your costs too. You know, like then you have to include that in your gross. Like maybe I'm going to sell so many rats to offset the cost of my rat food. You know, maybe I'm using a shed out back that's already paid for, so I don't have that much overhead. Those sort of things, right? Can help with that. So let me show you these. So somebody's asked about asphalt. Well, let's look at some asphalt. So this is our latest clutch out of the incubator. I'm super duper excited about these guys. Now they're all like fresh, so these colors aren't going to be what's going to stay necessarily. But this is your freeway stuff here. Let me get one of these little guys out for you, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. But there you go, man. There is the head on it. How cool is that? Now what we know is an inchy ivory was bred to a there you go, to a freeway pastel. So we know one copy of pastels in there. There could be extra stuff in the Inchy Ivory. Those all white snakes tend to hide things. And so what that helps us with this clutch, if you are going to get in the asphalt project, is I would always suggest using super asphalt or freeway, but I want in a super yellow belly. I don't want to ever play the game, although I might because I'm going to end up having to keep something. Asphalt or yellow belly, I don't think that's a fun game to play. Where here it becomes pretty clear. This one's a super yellow belly, and those are asphalt yellow bellies. So you can kind of cheat that a little bit, which I highly recommend doing, and the results will always be the two gene combo when you do that. These things have held value pretty good. Let me show you this bottom stunner here, man. This one here is just out of the world. Look at that thing. Ooh, doggies. Really, really, really nice. I can't wait to see it shed. There's going to be some more pattern and color pop up in these guys. I mean, they literally just came out the egg, like, I think yesterday. So, anyway, really, really cool. I'm not 100% sure what we got here. I'll have to wait till it sheds out. I think everything in it's at least pastel freeways, so that's cool. I do think at least one of them is definitely going to have Inchy. I think this is at least a Mardi Gras freeway. You can just kind of see the party and the sides going on there, and then that head screaming to me. So I think at least two of those are going to be that. Is going to be very interesting as it goes down the road. And then two, I don't think the ivories are all going to be true ivories. I think you're going to have some other stuff in them. You can see some yellow and back patterns on this one and on this one here. Like there's definitely some color, really kind of a cool snake. So I'm really excited to see how these go. So anyway, put this back up here. What direction am I going with the Mardi Gras stuff? So the Mardi Gras stuff was, honest to goodness, I don't know what direction I'm going yet. It's one of these things that, it's just, yeah. This was something Kurt wanted to get into, and I was a little bit like on the fence. And sometimes when you have a business partner, you each make concessions. And he really wanted to get into freeways, and I was like, man, I don't want to deal with this asphalt yellow belly bullshit. I just don't want to deal with it. Which I think is what's kept freeway valuable because nobody wants to deal with it. I really wanted to get into the Suma project. He was lukewarm on that. And so I said, tell you what, let's do this. We got to show we were able to buy both at the same time. One, our freeway came from Tallgrass, I believe, and the Suma came from Travis Whistler. And we said, look, let's just buy both. And then the deal is, man, I'm going to want to buy a male here in a year or two that is an ivory. Because the only way I'm touching freeway is if I have an ivory male. That's it, because I need to make that pairing. But I'll get into that project, and then we're going to get the Suma project. He was cool with that, so we bought both. When we went to Florida, we picked up that ivory male. I want to say it came from Fireball, but don't quote me. And there we go. He's hatched two clutches. I'll show you his other clutch, because other clutch is really awesome too. And this is another clutch I'm very, very happy with. All right, so we used an Inchy Ivory male, and I also wanted to breed it to my Champagne this last year, just because Inchy Champagnes look really good. So I kind of wanted to get it into there, and so that was what we did. And this is, again, so all we should have in here, right? I like the freeways. I like the contrast is a little bit better, but that's just me. I also have them, so I'm biased. Well, and I'll tell you, James, we'll be selling it, but the only way, and I think you might already be, if you're not on our Patreon, you got to get on our Patreon because that's where we'll sell through. And that's where we'll sell those ivories through if we part with any of them. I'm sure we will. I mean, there may be a holdback or two in that group, but not everything. So with ours, we knew there was Inchy Ivory, which is super yellow belly and Inchy in there. So we expected yellow belly across the board, which we got. Champagne's going to be at play. Those are the things going to be at play. So let me show you this. Now, this is not the clutch that I expected to come out of there. This is pretty definite, I think. Whoa, come here, little buddy. I mean, this has a look of pastel being in it. Faux show, faux show, faux show, and yellow belly is definitely in there. So what we're seeing there, I think, is a pastel yellow belly, which would mean our little inchy ivory male probably has pastel in it, which is really cool because that would explain this here and this here, right? Otherwise, they're pretty unexplainable. And then this here is probably an inchy yellow belly champagne. A lot of pattern there. These are at least going to be yellow belly pastel champagnes. This here will be just come here, a yellow belly champagne here. Check that out. Really cool. I'm digging that. And then of course a straight up, right out the box. Whoa, come here. Yellow belly right here. There's the belly. Whoop, maybe. So, and of course these are going into sheds. They look a little bit dark. And this one is going to be, come here, little buddy, an inchy yellow belly. So as you can see, we got some pretty cool stuff in there. I'm pretty happy with that clutch. Also, our one champagne has this one here. I don't know if I showed it to you. A really nice ringer on it. Double ringer there, fully double ringer. And one of these guys, I don't think it was you. This one, which I'm hoping is a girl, has a paradox on the tail. This right there. So really cool clutch. I'm going to check, see what sex it is right now, as a matter of fact. So anyway, that is what we got on those. So as you can see, we got some surprises, which led me to believe we could have all those snakes did come from the same parents, Cheesy Poo. It came from a straight champagne male and an inchy ivory female. The other set of clutches was the same male, actually. Come on, let me see it, girl. I need to look under the hood. And we'll call it girl because I'm hoping. Hey, we have a girl. Yay. I'll tell you now, too. I know it's 2 holdbacks. There's a good chance that one with a little paradox area will be a holdback because I just like paradox snakes. They're kind of fun. So I'll probably end up keeping that one. Anyway, so that's kind of what's shaking. All right, guys, before I hop off here and I slide over to Patreon for a little while, has anybody got any questions before we go? And then, glad I can help you out with that, Ryan. Imagine if humans did that and I had one. If humans did what? Oh, a bunch of babies? And you had a baby like that? Or you're saying you owned a human? Don't own humans. Owning humans is bad. But no, yeah. The weird thing, too, is retained sperm. Imagine if humans retained sperm. I'd be getting calls from the Maury show for crap I did in school. That would not be cool. Bad. So, yes, I haven't... Okay, let me explain that, Jacob. With one shedding or whatnot, I've never had it happen. Now, I have had a spectacle torn, and it was the only injury that I've ever had in my entire life feeding snakes live food. And it happened with a boa constrictor back in 1997 or 8. Okay, long time ago. Only snake I had, lived in my girlfriend's house. My mom wouldn't have a snake in school. I was in high school. And I bought it for my science teacher. And I brought home a rat to feed it. And that snake would eat the rat. He'd coil it and look at it. It was kind of a dork. And the rat's back leg came out and it kicked the snake in the face. Didn't bite it, kicked it. Well, anyway, it cut that scale. The snake ate the rat. The snake didn't really care. I didn't notice it right away that the scale had cut. And I'm checking the animal like the next day and I can see something's not right in the eye. So I took it to the vet. We figured out what happened. And then we had to put an antibacterial drop in it every day or twice a day. I don't remember now. And like natural tears, like the same natural tears we use 4 or 5 times a day. So I'm putting that like morning before school, after school, before I'd leave, and then she'd do it like once throughout the day too. I think it was summertime actually. I was able to do it all the time. Now I think about it. And the snake went in the shed within about 10 days after that, which is normal on an injury like that. And it grew a new scale and it fixed it. And the eye was saved, no scarring, no issue. It tore a scale, which isn't a big deal. It just tore the worst scale it could tear. So I have had that. That is the one feeding injury I've had in all these years. You're talking from 1997, I think is when I got that snake, on to, what are we, 2021. And I owned snakes most of the time during that span. There was maybe a 5-year hiatus where I didn't have snakes. And most of that time I didn't own this. Like I didn't have a breeding operation or breeding plans. That came much, much later in the game, probably circa 2011, 12. I started first forming this idea. And, and I didn't go whole hog like a lot of people did. I know people who started in like 2007 who were, this is what they invested in fully. I didn't do that. I wanted to keep my day job on a small level. So, since your mom won't let you have snakes when you were in high school, what does she think of all the ones you have now? To say she's a fan would be a lie. She's not a big fan of it, but she understands it. She doesn't come down here. My stepdad's been down here. My mom will never set foot down here. It's just not going to happen. She has a fear. I can't. It is what it is. My sister's the same way. Her kids have come down here. Her kids have checked it out. You guys have seen some of my other nieces, like my great nieces down here and things. My brother thinks it's awesome. He's had snakes before. My mom, though, never happened. So, yeah. Live feeding 2 of your guys going to Pro Football Hall. Well, there you go. I don't know who's going in today. I haven't paid that much attention, but I don't think any Vikings are, so, it is what it is. All right, y'all. Let me hop off here, though, and slide over to Patreon. Talk with those folks for a while. I want to get their opinions on ball python business. That's really important to me. Especially for them, I need to know where they're coming from, what they're thinking, and what we're all doing. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. I can turn this thing off.